Welcome in to a Humankind review video. This is a particularly interesting video that I want to share with you, and what I'm going to do for you is recap my first ever official loss in Humankind. Over the course of 2+ years of playing the game since launch on a regular basis, I had not recorded or seen the loss screen in Humankind, despite playing copious amounts of AI-based games, despite playing some multiplayer games. I had not experienced a loss yet. The game of Humankind, the 4X genre, had a little surprise in store for me that, under the right map circumstances, you too may experience. And so I'm interested if you want to post in the comments below once you've seen what I show you. If you've ever seen anything like this or experienced anything like it, this was a very intriguing phenomenon that occurred, and I will tell you, it was in a multiplayer game, just me and a friend, Icarus. You've probably seen him around, both in the YouTube comments, but also on the Twitch channel. We play off stream on weekends while we play Humankind together. More of a cooperative format. We're competing against each other, but we don't do a lot of war. We war against the AI, and we just compete to see who can get the most fame. I had won 7 straight times against him, and just felt really, obviously, very good about that. And then Humankind was like, no, you can't. Not again. And not to discredit Icarus. Icarus, I'll show you his land. He had a fantastic game and probably was unbeatable anyway. But I experienced a phenomenon in the game of Humankind that led pretty much directly to a loss. And I don't know if it was ever something I could have recovered from. There was a couple scenarios we'll go through maybe that could have helped me in this scenario. But let's check out the game and I'll show you exactly what I mean, and we'll take a look at what transpired to result in my first ever loss in the game of Humankind. Here we are, in what was my capital city of Harappa. It's a beautiful land. There's 95 population here, which is pretty decent. We're on turn 245, which is when this particular game ended, and you'll notice everything seems fine. Everything seems just perfectly fine. And as I zoom out, you'll see, wow, what are you complaining about? You have such beautiful land. I do. There are lovely rivers. In fact, beautiful rivers. You can see my capital city's actually settled. Literally every single tile, including the tile it's on, was on river, which is wildly good, of course. Rivers are very powerful in the game of Humankind, so we were able to take advantage of that. And we'll notice that our land continues to look really good. We have quite a few luxury resources. We have quite a few strategic resources. We've got a second city with 79 population, some lovely pieces happening as far as just our land, our water's looking nice. We've got lots of districts. Everything looks really good. And as I zoom out, you'll start to find out, oh, we also have Salto Angel. So Salto Angel is here, and beautiful. We have lovely wonders. Our land is absolutely gorgeous. And as I zoom out, what you'll see is this was my starting continent. This was my starting continent, and you'll see quickly the distances, and if you run the calculations, there is no way until you hit 3-masted ship to get units out of my land. And so what I'll do is I'll show you a picture right here of what I experienced when I was in game. Obviously, I can see all the land around it. It doesn't look quite as just completely isolated and alone. Well, the picture will show you that I saw nothing. I sent boats out as far as I could into Death's Door and could not see other land. This continent here was the New World. So this continent right here was the New World, and I could not get there. The only reason I ended up getting off of my continent as early as I did is because Icarus actually happened to send a boat just far enough out, and we actually never even figured out how we saw each other. I had a unit in the water out here somewhere. He had a unit out here in the water. We never saw each other, but somehow we met each other. So I'm not quite sure exactly what happened there. I never saw a soul in this game, and then Icarus, finally I was able to meet Icarus. And again, it was like happenstance that it occurred. And Icarus was already so far ahead of me at that point in fame that he was just like, basically just helped me out. I would never have had any of this land on the New World if Icarus had not basically gifted me units to be able to make some sort of headway, because I was literally stuck. Hindsight, I should have made a third city. I thought, you know, hey, I'm gonna get off of this island. This is a nice little 2-city island. I don't need much more than that. It's gonna be great as a 2-city island. Turns out, probably not so much. It should have had a third city. If I would have split this into like 3 cities, I probably could have gotten some more stars, but with 2 cities and just complete stagnation, no ability to trade, no ability to get access to any additional luxuries, it was kind of a debacle. Now, there were several things that would have helped in this game to help get me off of this island. You could see, like, just like when you zoom in, like, look the distances, and then you couple it with your water and your cloudy patches and things, like your water conditions. There was no way off. This was one of our closest spots, but there's still, until you get that extra movement, or again, so until you get the ability to have your units not die when and take damage instead of dying, right? When they get lost at sea. Until you have that, which is, I believe, the 3-masted ship technology, which is deep into the tech tree, which I'll show you in just a moment, you're just stuck. Like, there's just nothing that I could do to cross these vast pieces of ocean. There's like, look at, and like no islands to connect me in. It was just completely isolated. It was the wildest experience. So let's look at the tech tree really quick, just so I can show you exactly where that 3-masted ship technology is. So here's 3-masted ship. In the 4th era, in the early modern era, is when you get access to the Caravel, which is your naval transport that can get your embarked units not dying as soon as they get the lost at sea status, right? Ignores penalties from deep water. Like, this is what you have to get out onto the water. With units that can do anything except for, you know, boats. Boats I was able to get out a little bit faster, because boats you could get out there more quickly in order to not take that damage, right? But it was a complete stretch for me to be able to try to get off of my land. Now, there are a couple things that possibly could have helped. One of them is a wonder. So if we jump quickly to our wonders, if I would have been able to gain access to the Lighthouse of Alexandria, I would have been able to get off of my island, because the Lighthouse of Alexandria, as you can see, gives you +2 naval movement speed on naval transports. That +2 speed on naval transports would have gotten me off of my initial starting island. When I moved up, by the time I was able to move up, the lighthouse was claimed a mere turns before I was able to go and try to snag it. And so I was not able to claim the Lighthouse of Alexandria. So what I did instead is I was able to choose the Norsemen. And so when I chose the Norsemen, I gained access to their +3 naval movement speed on transport. That was the only reason I was able to get out in the 3rd era, right? In the 4th era, I would have had 3-masted ship and I could have gone out. But can you imagine being stuck in a small, I think I had, what, 3 attachment city, or maybe a 4 attachment city and a 2 attachment city? Basically, there was no territories with which I could claim anything, and I couldn't get anything done in a fashion that got me any stars. So you can see, even when I played as the Marians, if we click over to our time as the Marians, this is how many stars I got. This is it. So all the stars I was able to collect: 1 aesthete star, 3 scientist stars, and 2 agrarian stars, 2 builder stars. There was just nothing else I could do at that point with just the 2 cities and no trade to be seen. Now, 1st era, fantastic, because the 1st era, like, that's enough territories to do stuff with. I even got to play the Harapans, fantastically powerful, right? Culture, really, really strong. And I had lots of stars. I think I was in 1st or close to 1st place. Like, I was doing really, really well. Then we go to the Marians. Marians, incredibly powerful culture, very, very strong. Got to pick the Marians. Huge. Like, that's going to be great. Of course I'm going to do well. I got the Harappans and Damarians. It was awesome. I had nothing to do. I could not do, I was not, like, -10 on attach outpost costs. All my everything was already attached, right? +1 on emblematics. I couldn't build hardly any emblematics. There was just no land for me to put things in. It was the most crazy experience. And I will tell you this, our settings were not like weird. We didn't have our settings set up like strangely or anything like that. Just ended up on this completely isolated island where I could not get off of my mainland, which was, it was just a wild experience to feel like a game of complete isolation where I couldn't until, again, it would have been the 4th era had I not been able to pick the Norseman here. And you can see as soon as I picked the Norseman, I was able to collect some more stars again. I was so far behind at this point because it had taken me so long to move up, because just to get these stars with the Marians, to get enough stars to move up, it was a struggle because I just had no land. I had nothing to, again, an extra city would have helped a great deal with like builds and getting maybe some builds out there, getting population up a little higher, a little faster, because we could have been growing in 3 cities instead of just 2. This is the game where I've started to shift some of my thinking on strategy in the game of Humankind. I used to like making pretty big cities. In other words, I'd like to attach a lot of territories to a city. Now I'm kind of like, well, you know what? Maybe like a 3 attachment, 4 at the most attachment, like city. Maybe that's more in line with what I should be doing. Maybe more cities is better because it gives me the opportunity to chase more stars in different ways. If you've got a big enough empire and enough space, you can kind of get away with the bigger, space. But when you think about the fact that agrarian stars, particularly, agrarian stars, you can only earn at most 1 population in a city if it's growing as fast as it can per turn. If you only have 2 cities, even if you max growth out in those cities, you're still only able to gain that 1 population per turn. And so you really aren't going to get any agrarian stars if you only have a couple cities. Now, if you have another, like again, if I would have added a 3rd city, maybe you're talking now, because now you can at least there's a 3rd place that's gaining you population. If you can again max out population growth in that city, you could get extra population. The builds are the kind of the same. You could yeah, your production's going to be cut, but you could be working towards more builds at this like simultaneously, and that may equate out to like the same type of thing. But each city, you're going to have fewer districts in, which means your districts are not going to cost as much to build. And so obviously then you can get your quarters and your districts out faster. So again, maybe smaller cities are a possible solution to like a situation like what I ran into. But again, we played Norsemen. You already know this because I played Norsemen before, even on our Let's Play series. The Norsemen, I think, are very underrated and very powerful. The Naust is a really great emblematic district. I think the Stormborn trait actually incredibly useful as you kind of are striking out for curiosities and diplomacy points and things like that. I got to play the Inca after that. At this point, I was kind of just like memeing because I just had no ability to win. I'd never tried the Inca before, and I was like, I don't know, like I've got some mountains, and so I'll play around with the Inca maybe. So I did a little messing with the Inca. They're fine. I didn't mind them. I don't think they're particularly powerful. And then Icarus was so far ahead that I think Icarus at this point was also possibly memeing and just going for as much fame as possible. Icarus skips out on the Persians, so I was like, okay, cool, I get to play the Persians. Yeah, like one of the best, arguably the best in this era, right? Why not? Like, of course we're gonna, we picked the Persians. And then in the final era, Icarus leaves the Japanese on the table, and so I'm able to pick the Japanese, again, arguably one of the most powerful cultures in the contemporary era. And so I had every opportunity in the world based on the cultures available and the cultures that I was able to take to make a great game of this. Look at my fame total, 16,543. I don't think I've ever ended a game of Humankind with a lower fame total than this. It was really fascinating to watch the game just kind of crumble around me as I could not do anything with my initial land here. This, again, the land ended up looking great, but with no cities, yeah, it was really intense. By the time I got here to the New World, it had been claimed up by one of the, it wasn't Plosive. Plosive was what was, Icarus went to war. You can look at Icarus's land. Icarus started, I don't even remember. I think Icarus started here in this land and took all of it over, jumped over into the New World, took that over. Icarus has land kind of in every different kind of location at this point. You can see his empire just spans just swaths of land, and you could look at just how gorgeous he's turned all of this in to just beautiful things. so much land, so many districts built into all of his cities out onto the New World. So basically when I got here to the New World, it had already all been claimed up, and so I had to go to war, but I didn't have any means with which to go to war. So, I mean, Icarus was essentially just feeding me units. Otherwise, my fame score would have been even lower because I was waging just ridiculous wars, trying to, like, gain a foothold in the New World in order to expand my footprint. One thing I was able to do was there was a Free Peoples that ended up spawning here. I believe it was this Free Peoples right here. Tlaxcala. So I was able to utilize some Free Peoples to my advantage to try to get some units and, you know, obviously try to ascertain some foothold somewhere else. But because I was stuck and I couldn't get out of my land, even to explore for the great majority of the game, by the time I discovered any Free Peoples to be able to assimilate or client state them so that I could expand my empire, there was already people that were investing so heavily in those Free Peoples because of how long I was stuck that I wasn't able to assimilate any Free Peoples either, because it was just not possible anymore because there were so many people pouring stuff into those Free Peoples, right? So you just end up so far behind when you're fully trapped on your own little starting continent that there was really no way to get out of here, right? And the worst part was I didn't realize the scenario I was in until pretty late into the game, right? I'm exploring and I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm pretty quickly, if you've played Humankind, you're going to pretty quickly explore this amount of land. It's not that many territories, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 territories. You're going to explore that almost in the Neolithic era if you're sitting around in the Neolithic for a little while, right? So I kind of knew that I was on a small continent, but I just assumed there would be some islands, although you could kind of tell even at the very beginning as I was running units along that coast, you could kind of see that there was no connectors, right? I saw no coastal water that went out into the ocean. Over here was a place where I couldn't quite see like all the way out. I was like, oh, maybe there's like a nice little, you know, like coastal water out there that I could jump on. No, just didn't exist. And so by the time you get boats in the water, and start to ship them out in, like, right, we're jumping out and back everywhere to try to, like, see if I could, like, get anything, right? And at this point, I've got units in the water, I've got boats in the water, I'm trying to send them different locations. I like, some of my boats died trying to cross, some of my units died trying to get across, because I'm just like, I gotta test everything at this point, so I'm testing out, like, different directions all the way until death, just to see if I can get them across the water. No such luck. If I would have realized sooner, I probably would have tried to push a move up really fast to try to get the Lighthouse of Alexandria. But I think it was one of those things where, like, you just don't fully comprehend that you're completely stuck until you're stuck. And then you realize, oh, I really need something to get me out of this. What is it that could possibly get me out of this? You've got 3 options. You've got the Lighthouse of Alexandria for your extra movement. You've got waiting until the 3rd era to get the Norsemen. If that wouldn't have worked, then I could have also picked a science affinity culture in the 3rd era, which would have allowed me to research into the 4th era, right? Because that's the trait that the research, the science affinity cultures have. So that way I could have researched into that era and been able to snag the tech while I was still in the 3rd era to get out and then collect more 3rd era stars rather than having to move up really fast out of the 3rd. As it turns out, we were able to get the Norsemen, right? So we were able to get out of the land at that point. But I was essentially for 2 eras stuck. For 2 eras plus a little bit, right? Because once I pick the Norsemen, I have to like travel out across the water and get where I need to go. And it turned out, even with that plus movement, I only had a couple of escape points. It wasn't like I could get everywhere really fast. I still had to travel like very specific directions like through the land in order to get across. In fact, I believe I could not get units this direction still, right? This was still blocked to me until I had 3-masted ship to some degree. Like the gaps were too large, even with the increased movement, to be able to get like units out. It was a very intriguing experience. I found it to be amazing. I actually enjoyed playing it out because I was like, what happens when this occurs to you? Like I was stuck, you know? And you start to understand, like, even from, I was starting to like think about it from the perspective of like world history, like when your people are isolated and they don't have the connections and the trade and the culture sharing and all of the things that happen within the meeting of cultures and the blending of peoples and the sharing of ideas, when you don't have those things, you kind of just stagnate and you can't do much of anything. There's no motivation almost, right? Like you're sitting in your little space making the most of it, but you don't know the other innovation that's going on around you. There's no sharing of that information, of those cultures and beliefs and things. And so it is absolutely fascinating to see that play out in a game of Humankind by being stuck on my own little island, my own little continent. So that is the story of how I lost my first ever game of Humankind. I hope you enjoyed hearing about it. Again, that image that I showed is kind of like, it's like this weird scenario you find yourself in where like there's fog all around you and you can't get out. Like I was like, this is it. This is what I got to deal with for the game. I thought maybe I could make it work even just within that. Not so much. That wasn't ever going to be a thing that was like able to like build my way out of on my own continent. So there it is. My first ever loss, where I saw the loss screen, and Icarus just absolutely demolished everybody in this. Actually, I have it up right now. Icarus ended with 26.6 thousand fame, which is like one of the highest numbers that I have ever seen. 26.6 thousand fame is like, that's pretty much the most you can get. That's 10,000 fame more than I had in second place, which hats off to Icarus. This is obviously very, very well played on that one. And if you ever find yourself in a scenario like this, maybe more cities, I'm not sure. If you've ever been in a spawn like this in Humankind, let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. If you like the content, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and you're subscribed to the channel. Next week, I will have one more one-off Humankind video before we start our next Let's Play series. The next week is focused on a particular strategy, and a strategy that maybe is also not so successful, this time against the AI. So tune in next week to see exactly what happened in that game. And then after that, we'll jump into our Let's Play series. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.